Hey everyone, this is James Oliver here, Trep Life Dad, the #1 lifestyle blog for parent entrepreneurs. And today I am super excited to have a really good friend of mine, Brian Davis here, have a conversation. Brian is just a super guy. He's an inventor, he's an entrepreneur, and he's just like doing some amazing things with some crowdfunding campaigns. And I'm excited to have him here, and we're gonna have a great conversation, right? So, I mean, what is up, Brian Davis?
Hey, not a lot. How's it going, James? Man, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped to have you, dude. So let's just jump right in because I know I've known you for a long time, and we're going to probably go off the rails a little bit here. So let's just dive right in here. When I met you, I guess I've been living in Appleton now for Wisconsin for 5 years, and I probably met you. I've known you like 3 or 4 years now, and dude, when I met you, you were working at FedEx. Like, how the heck did you make a transition from being a FedEx employee to a full-time entrepreneur / inventor?
Yeah, that, I think you're either born with that desire to do that or not. So I was definitely born with it. And
to do what? To be an entrepreneur?
Yeah. And working for someone else was always just a way to pay a bill. It was never anything I ever felt like I wanted to do. Even for a little while, like every time I'd start a new job, I'd love it for like a month, and then I'd be like, okay, this is terrible. I got to get out of here. So yeah, I was at FedEx. It's a great company to work for. So I was a sales rep for them. So it was a neat job because I got to go out and talk to all kinds of different companies in the area. Before that, I worked for DHL in the same capacity. So it was nice got to learn a lot about how different companies made money and how, they bring in product from China, do something to it here, and sell it to the United States. Was pretty much the standard operating procedure for many of them. So, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just learned, how that works, the supply chain and all that stuff, and really how not complicated any of that really is. Right. The hardest part is once you developing some sort of brand or some sort of following, and then you can transition that into one small project and a bigger project and a bigger project. At least that's been how I've done it. So with FedEx was a great springboard to be able to, and it was a sales job that I worked out of my house. So, my time wasn't monitored all day, every day.
So that sales experience.
And side projects here and there while I was still working. So
right. So so obviously that sales experience was key, but like, how did you do it? Did you just decide to quit cold turkey and work on your first project, which was Fix It Sticks?
When Fix It Sticks hit me, I got a prototype made up finally, and then moved on and talked to a couple people, and the thought process was, well, I don't know, it's interesting, but it's not that great. But I had a lot of experience. One of my other side projects was selling things on Amazon. Right. So I was comfortable being able to market and promote this just within Amazon, as long as it was my thing. Right. Then I could choose to never sell the product on Amazon and not get, bullied by Amazon anymore. Right. So that was a big part of why I wanted to do it. And then once I started showing enough people and got the prototypes better and better, I started thinking, well, maybe this is bigger than just being on Amazon. Maybe it's kind of its own thing. And then when I launched the first Kickstarter, I should say this, when I sent some samples of my prototypes to a couple people in the cycling media, one person posted it on a very influential website, Velo News, and that drove an unbelievable amount of traffic to my little website, which was set up just to capture emails at that time in anticipation of doing a Kickstarter. Right. Once that launched, I had 500 people on that email list to notify when we hit Kickstarter. And then after the first week of Kickstarter, I think we hit like 15,000 probably on the first campaign. Wow. And then the wheels were turning, like I gotta quit. Because I also had I owned rental real estate. I had an Amazon business. Yeah. And the Fix It Sticks thing was launching, plus I worked at FedEx. So it was just overwhelming, and my wife finally gave me the go-ahead, like, hey, I think you're going to burn the house down because you're so distracted, your brain is all over the place. So,
that's awesome. So hold on there. You dropped some...
The other day, that was the true story. She's like, you need to quit, you're going to hurt us all.
Wow. That's amazing. So, but hang on. So circle back. I think you dropped some really important little nuggets there. So what I heard you say is that you had your full-time gig, but you were hustling with all your possible spare time on all your side projects, one of which happened to be Fix It Sticks, which is a multi-tool for cyclists. You're you're a super cycling enthusiast, and all your products have been around that, which I think is cool. It's like so you have a passion, you identify these problems that you see with respect to your passion, and you go about solving them. So I love that you had your full-time gig, because I hear people talking all the time about, oh, how do I do this? Well, work on it while you have income, and then at a certain point you got to cut the cord and go for it, right?
Right. Yep.
Which is what you did. So that's cool. So you got to a point where your wife was incredibly supportive, which is, dude, like for me, I mean, I write about this all the time. Other than having a good idea, something that somebody cares about, wants to pay you for, if you don't have a supportive spouse or partner, I think that's the number one thing you have to have if you want to be an entrepreneur and you're in a serious relationship or married. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My wife is a teacher, so she handles the benefits and things like that. But, as soon as I say that, I see people's faces out there turning like, oh, well, my wife's not a teacher, my wife doesn't work or whatever, or my husband or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Do not use that as an excuse.
Well,
that
people are full of excuses,
weak.
Right?
That's weak to use it as an excuse. It's nice to have, but
it's
not.
Totally weak. Yeah, totally weak. So my next question was, how did that transition affect the balance in your house? But sounds like it didn't, because your wife was the one that was like, dude, you're going crazy. Quit already.
yeah, I mean, that's how it started. So I quit, and then the paycheck stopped. And then, then things got a little grippy here and there, when Fix It Sticks was still out.
Grippy?
Yeah. In its first iteration, it sold well, but it was, it was pretty niche.
Yeah.
And then we got some distributors, so there was always these glimmers of hope along the way, but it was never enough money to be like, oh yeah, this is bang on, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So then, and I still had to keep reinvesting in Fix It Sticks to develop the next product we were working on, which was the replaceable version of Fix It Sticks, which soaked up a lot more money.
Yeah.
So during that time, things were a little bare and very stressful. But,
yeah. Well, you also have children. You have 2 kids. So it's not just you and the wife. You also have kids you're responsible for.
Yeah, 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at that time, and now 6 and 3. So it was, there was a lot going on. But
yeah.
I
know. Oh, I know.
Yeah, I bet you do. I felt very confident, with the uptick I was seeing in sales and with the amount of press that we were getting.
Yeah.
I felt like, with this much attention on it, and then more importantly, when people would actually use the tool, the reviews that we got were just astounding. I mean, people just loved using them.
Oh, that's so great, man.
That love will translate to sales as more and more people get to experience it.
Yeah. One other thing you said I thought was really important is that it got picked up in PR. Did you already have that relationship in place, or was that just kind of lucky for you?
No, well, there's two answers to that. First part was luck. When I sent it to the prototypes, which in retrospect they were way too early of a prototype to send off to the press, but luckily she didn't break them, and she liked the prototypes, so she wrote about them. But,
oh, cool.
But that sparked my thought into thinking, okay, this PR thing is really what I need to focus on. So as soon as that went out, all the traffic that developed into the site to launch, once we launched, then I had read dozens of articles about how to have a successful Kickstarter. And then I followed that formula to the T. So I had actually hired a virtual assistant, because I was still working my day job.
Yeah.
So I had her develop a list of maybe 50 or so very targeted cycling blogs, put those in a Dropbox spreadsheet that we could both access. And then I started working that list for the pre-launch. And then right before we launched, I made the decision, which ended up being extremely intelligent, was to hire a PR firm that specializes in the outdoor industry, specifically even within cycling.
Okay. What'd that cost you?
I think that was a couple thousand. And then I also paid for a professional video, which was a couple thousand. So my first Kickstarter, I had about a $5,000 overhead on my first Kickstarter, which was, there's a couple things I would do differently, but generally I was okay with that. So the point of the PR firm was they took the press release that I had pretty much crafted. I was a PR major in college, so I had it fairly well down. Okay. They tweaked it, but more importantly, they sent it out on their letterhead to all the press contacts that they had. So that gave the company, the idea, the Kickstarter, everything about me instant credibility just by following their coattails of an established industry PR group. And that was, it wasn't like a grand plan of mine, but in looking back on the decisions I made, that was a one of the best decisions I made for launching the
So,
company.
so that's a good segue to my next question. So essentially, dude, you're the only person that I know that's rocked a Kickstarter campaign, not once, but twice, with not just Fix It Sticks, but your other project. What was the other project again?
Well, we did 2 Kickstarters for Fix It Sticks. Okay. The first one was $45,000. The second one was $82,000, and then the one that's on right now.
Well, hang on. Don't talk about that yet. Hang on one second. Hold on about that. So 2 campaigns for the same project, raised over 40 grand, 80 grand. That's just nuts, right? Like, so what are the top 3 things that someone must do to successfully execute a Kickstarter campaign in your view? Top 3.
Okay. Well, I get asked that a lot since I've done them. So I guess I would say the first thing is I met with somebody the other day and was describing my process, and he's like, I can't believe how much work goes into it ahead of time. And I like, of course, you know, it's no accident. It's no accident that people find these things. So I think that's the part that people misinterpret a lot, is they feel like it just catches on and goes viral, and it's real mystery how that ever happens. It's no mystery. You know, there's no luck. It's hard work and opportunity coming together, right, to make it successful.
So that is luck right there. That's what luck is.
All the work occurs 2 months, 3 months before. So let's assume your product is done, but that's where the work starts. You know, you really need to get that press list put together. That's what I see people not doing very well, is understanding how to get the word out. And I think the easiest way to accomplish that, the best tip I got on doing that, is go to Google, do an image search for some other Kickstarter project that has been done in the world that's somewhat similar to yours. Find all the bloggers that covered that, and that's what goes on your list.
Oh, cool. So wow, searching an image. Wow, that's genius.
Yeah, that's the hack that I learned in one of the articles that I read, and I'm like, man, this is just awesome. So one of the best blog posts about it was in 4-Hour Workweek, and if you Google hack Kickstarter, and specifically look for the article from 4-Hour Workweek, they had a guest blogger, Tim Ferriss had a guest blogger do that one, and it is just priceless with information.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's where I picked up that trick, and I use it on every campaign, and it's amazing. So.
All right, speaking of every campaign, you have you're nuts. You have a new Kickstarter campaign going on as we speak for a brand new invention. You're crazy. So like, what's this about? What's this new campaign? What's the new product? Tell me about it.
All right, so I think the easiest way to talk about like how I develop stuff is it's just innovation through frustration.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm a passionate cyclist. Like that doesn't even do it justice, you know. Like I eat, live, and breathe riding my bike. That's all I ever want to do.
Yeah.
So when I do it, I constantly think about ways that could make it just a little bit better. And you know, some of the ideas are pretty out there, but every once in a while I get one that kind of sticks with me. And like, you know, if you did this and this and this, it might work out. So that was the new project is called the back bottle. So that's where it came from. Sticking a regular cycling bottle in your back jersey pocket is doable, but it's not enjoyable, and it doesn't work properly, and it's not right, you know. So then I took that concept of wanting to be able to carry extra water with me on longer rides and sort of combined a hydration pack with a regular bottle and put the two together, and now I have a really, really simple, low-cost solution to it called the back bottle, which is on Kickstarter right now.
Dude, that's awesome. And so obviously you've gone, I mean, I've been around you, and we've been at our Friday Disruptors meetings. That's just a group of guys in my area that we fancy ourselves misfits and disruptive. And because that's not the norm where we live, we kind of all support each other, get together every other week for coffee, although I don't do that anymore now that I'm taking care of the twins, but I still connect. Sometimes you guys come over here, which I appreciate. But I've seen you with like the prototypes and the molds and all these different widgets and things. You're like, what do you guys think about this? And you're, you know, frustrated back and forth on the phone with China and people around the country. You're just like super hustling to get the product right. Is that right?
Yeah, and just real quick on that point, all my stuff so far is Fix It Sticks was all made in the USA, and Back Bottle was all made in the USA.
Cool.
And the biggest advantage to that is you can, speak normal English to people on the right time zones and get the stuff a lot quicker and deal with problems so much better. So for me, it's a good business decision because of the supply chain issues that get involved when you go overseas. I've tried to source a couple, like for Fix It Sticks, all the bits come from overseas because the costs in the States are just prohibitive.
Yeah.
So even just working through the whole bit process and making those orders and magnets as well is just, I don't know how people run I don't know how people do that all day. Every day.
Right.
Deal with overseas
Okay.
sourcing.
So just so everybody knows, I will go ahead and put a link to your current, excuse me, Kickstarter campaign on the blog when I post this, which will probably be tomorrow, so people can go support it. If you have friends that are cycling enthusiasts, please share it with them. I think they'll love it. If you're a cycling enthusiast, like, represent and support it. So you successfully invented Fix It Sticks, got national exposure and distribution, but then you turned around and found someone to buy it from you. Is that right?
Yeah. A large stake in Fix It Sticks I sold off to a gentleman last year, and he actually found me. So it was just a sort of a chance phone call that came across, and we hit it off pretty good right from the start, and I liked the way that he handled his business.
Yeah.
Seemed like a fair and genuine person.
Yeah.
So, we went all the way, and so he handles all the business aspect of Fix It Sticks and running it and marketing it and packaging it and finding new manufacturing sources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he does all that now, all the heavy lifting of the business side, and then that frees me up to come up with new products. So that the back bottle is the first fruit of that, where I have time to just sort of relax for a minute and come up with new stuff and solve new problems. And that's been excellent for me, and I love the relationship. I used to think that I would love running a business, and then after I got a real good taste of it, I realized I'm probably not very good at it, and I should get out of the way. So,
well, that's smart of you to recognize what you are good at and what you're not, and that's so cool that it sounds like you still have an interest in Fix It Sticks, so you're still inspired or motivated to keep improving it and creating more value for not just for you, but for the guy who bought, a significant portion of that business, which is great. So one last question I have is, for me personally, with WeMontage, my vision is to sell it for $50 million to whoever. I don't care. It's funny you said that guy reached out to you by chance. Actually, I have a call this afternoon with some guy who has a business broker. He reached out to me because he's got a client that just had a major acquisition and a windfall, and has another business in the wall art space.
Nice.
And they're looking to make acquisitions, and they're interested in talking to me about that. So I don't have any expectations that that's going to go anywhere. I suspect that we're not whatever he thinks we are, and we're still very early on. But it's just cool that I'm having this conversation today, like you said, kind of out of the blue. But and it's not really luck. I mean, luck is just where you say, well, hard work makes opportunity. If I hadn't hustled my ass off to get to this point, he would never been interested in having the conversation. So I'm pumped about that. But after I sell WeMontage, more than likely I'm going to have to get inspired to do something else. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but there's lots of talks. People are like, well, how do you find inspiration? And all these little hacky clickbait articles about 5 ways to get inspired to launch a business, which to me is just kind of nonsense. But how do you get inspired for these new ideas? How do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got to be honest with you. I don't have a complete answer to where they come from. It just comes to me, and like I said, some of them are terrible. And hopefully I can weed those terrible ones out in my own head. Because when you go ask advice from other people, the psychology of asking people what they think about your idea is really an interesting thing that I've learned a little bit about over the last couple of years. When I show somebody a new idea and they think, they smile and say, "Oh, that's really neat, Brian. That's cute." And then once I get further along and develop it into a prototype and then show it to them, then the truth starts to eke out a little bit. If they feel really strongly that it's kind of a dumb idea, they'll hint at it, But this go round, I found the best way to do it is take that idea, and this is also this is a good piece of advice that I give people all the time, is if you have an idea, the first thing that you should do, at least with a physical thing, and probably even with an app or a website too, is as quickly as you can get a prototype to the point where you don't have to sit and explain your idea verbally anymore. You can have someone see it with their own eyes. And
show, don't tell, right?
Through it, right? So I always tell people, I'm like, go to the hardware store, act like you're on a game show, and you've got 1 hour to walk out of there with everything you need to hack together something that represents any form of what you're trying to express to the world. And just by doing that one process, you'll figure out that it's not a good idea. It'll get you much farther along than you think. So I bought a 3D printer to help with that too, and I feel like that's a really good
interesting
investment for me. And that's what really helped with the bottle. I can't imagine producing anything like a bottle without a 3D printer to get a feel for that shape and function.
Wow. What does a 3D printer cost?
It was $1,700, but I think they're a little bit cheaper now. I'm sure you can get one for $1,200 or $1,000.
Okay.
Little desktop version. And I don't know how to run it. I just leave it at my friend's house who's an engineer, and that was our deal. Like, you can use it all you want. So I sent him still paper and pen sketches of what I want. He puts it in and prints it. And he gets basically the free use of a 3D printer.
Wow.
And the use of an engineer.
Wow. So dude, so like one thing I keep hearing you saying is that you reinvest in yourself and your ideas.
I think that's important. It's probably not something I do consciously, but it's just, I just run into these areas where I need the right tool to do the job. Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I think there's a lot of really great information you share with people. You know, a lot of people make excuses about why they can't get things done, and I think you're a perfect example of how to just, you know, make it happen, right? And I mean, I love that your wife and your family is supportive of you, and that, you know, you're doing so well. And like, dude, you inspire me, and I'm thankful to count you as a friend, and I appreciate you doing this interview. And I'm going to put the Kickstarter campaign link at the bottom, and hopefully, you know, I'm going to encourage people to please go out and support it. And thank you very much. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, and I'll shoot you over that document again if you don't post that, or if you could post that as well. And I get asked all the time about Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, the 49 tips to
develop this list of 49 tips.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in there too. I think that's pretty awesome.
And I give all that information away for free. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to just give me a call. I love talking about it and helping people start to realize their dreams. So it's fun for me.
Right on. This is awesome, man. I'll talk to you later.
See you, James.
Yeah.